So, Taylor, finally, we're talking.
Yeah.
And I want to know about West Coast culture versus East Coast culture, because you're from the West Coast.
Yeah, so caveat here, I was born in the West Coast. I lived there till I was 17, and then I actually went to Temple University. So, went to Temple, go Owls.
Woo!
Woo! I mean, the Eagles just won.
That's huge.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Anyways, so...
that's a whole other culture video.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing, right? So, West Coast, I'm going to talk about from like the younger me perspective, but then also switching over and coming back. So, growing up, everyone has the stereotypical like chill person. They're like the surfer dudes.
Yeah.
NorCal is actually, there's a completely different culture, by the way, from NorCal to Southern California.
So Northern California.
Yeah.
'Cause I heard NorCal.
Yeah, NorCal.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
That's culture.
NorCal and SoCal, totally different. Different phrasing. NorCal, like we always thought that we were the originators of certain terms, by the way. So like, that's hella sick. The word hella. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Yeah. Get into this.
Yeah, let's get into this.
So the word hella and all that is a NorCal thing.
So the origination, and I have to set this straight, SoCal people. So the origination of the word hella comes from NorCal, but then it was popularized throughout California. But when I grew up in the area, if you used hella, you knew that was a NorCal person.
Okay.
Okay. But I have no idea what the perception is, by the way, from across the United States.
Understood.
So, I mean now everyone's getting like politically correct. So if you use the word hella, that's like, why would you use that? You should use hecka. I don't know if people get offended. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that's a whole other thing.
So going from the West Coast to the East Coast, did you notice that same kind of? Oh, we started this.
I moved when I was 17, and I came to Temple. Actually, I was a competitive athlete. I did gymnastics throughout my whole life. And men's gymnastics. My grandpa did it in the Soviet Army, and he was also a boxer.
Wow.
So he was an athlete, and like my family was all about like putting us through lots of sports, trying out lots of stuff. So we always wanted to be very multi-talented. Anyways, getting back to the point, West Coast to East Coast, started being at Temple University. The first thing I noticed initially, probably revolving around sports, honestly, like sports fans, like Phillies, Eagles, 76ers. When I was in the West Coast, like we were fans like of like the San Jose Sharks or San Francisco 49ers, but it wasn't so like, and there's intense fans everywhere.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so intense.
Intense. Yeah.
Like, here, you show up to an Eagles game and you're wearing like a Jets jersey or something, or Cowboys or something. You're done. Like, people get into fights, they rip each other's heads off, so I'd say the intensity was definitely...
intensity around sports or intensity around everything? Because East Coast, West Coast.
I guess there's a little bit more, I'd say more intensity, I would agree with that. I think also what I noticed when I came here was people are a little bit more cold in the beginning, meaning like they're not as welcoming, like opening up. But then once you get into their inner circle, they treat you like family, and so like really close knit.
Would you say it's the opposite West Coast, where people are more genuinely open to everyone, but they aren't as familiar?
I would say there's like, there's still a strong familial component, but I think this is how I would describe it to people, is I actually went on a trip not too long ago. I was in Oregon. But that's, again, a whole different culture, but West Coast in general, like you're going on a bus ride and you go somewhere, and then you travel, you're going from A to B, and on the way, I wouldn't be surprised if someone approached me and said, "Hey, I like your shirt," and then they just start talking to you about random whatever, anything.
In the West Coast?
In the West Coast. I like what you're reading, I like the book you're reading, and then they sit down and just have like a normal chat. I don't know if the weather has something to do with it, I don't know, culture, I don't know.
That's interesting, yeah, because the East Coast, you would get shot.
There'd be a discomfort, right?
Yeah, there's a discomfort, for sure.
There's the way I describe it is, you approach someone here in the East Coast, you meet them, and it's like, how would I say it?
What do you want?
What do you want from me? Yeah, that would be the term. Whereas over there, it's like a very normal thing.
Interesting.
The other thing I noticed when I was on the West Coast and the East Coast recently is baseline, like if you look at people's faces, like I'm not even kidding. You've probably heard the term like RBF, like resting bitch face.
Yes.
Okay.
Now lots of those.
You know, they're nice people, but for some reason they have like a little bit of a. Yeah. So, anyways, so you meet those people who are like that, but in the West Coast, like people are more smiley. Like baseline, I think they're just more smiley, so they're more approachable.
Dude, it has to be the weather.
I think so.
It's gotta be the weather.
Yeah, so I
mean, what else would it be?
The weather has something to do, it's a combination, right? Because the weather helps. I think because of the weather, people are more apt to be outside. And then we can talk about activity.
Yeah, we can talk about how environment shapes behavior, and behavior shapes habit.
Right.
Which creates behavioral patterns, like, on top of it.
Perfect, right? So, right. So, from that aspect of it, let's just go with the basics here. There's more sun. More sun allows you, like, you don't have to close up, right? You don't have to conserve your heat. You can go outside. Going outside, exercising, that's part of our evolution. That's part of who we are.
Which makes us feel good.
It makes us feel good.
Neurologically, right? Dopamine and serotonin.
Dopamine, serotonin, the endorphins, everything's going. So you feel energetically up. And then that energy also just movement. Then you can meet people.
Energy's contagious.
Energy's contagious, brings about the smile, and that's the cause and effect of more smiley people in the West Coast. We figured it out.
Wow, I'm inspired right now. So wait, one piece of advice for someone that's moving to the West Coast or moving from the West Coast to the East Coast, right? So East Coast to West Coast, West Coast to East Coast. That's a takeaway.
A tip from that part of it would be, if you're going from the West Coast to East Coast, I think that we're very high energy people. Like I feel like that's kind of my place. So that'll be a whole other topic is energy, but finding ways to increase your energy. So if you're used to exercising, you got to keep that up. If you're used to being around a lot of people and talking to them, you have to build in those things to make sure you're communicating with people, still having friends. I think that was the big thing I lost was in the West Coast it was easy to do that.
And here you had to try.
Here I had to actually made the conscious effort, and that took me years to figure out. Like I wasn't happy for a while. I think part of it is I had to grab it. I think in the East Coast I had to grab it. In the West Coast, it's more built into the culture.
Now, if you're going from the East Coast to the West Coast, should you just be aware that people might talk to you?
I think that'll be the tough thing. Is I think in the East Coast, people are more prone to be closed. So I think the practice going from East to West would be to open yourself up to kind of different experiences and different people that you're going to meet there.
I think I have a more West Coast personality. I haven't even been there really. I'm happy.
I think you're ready to go.
Culture.
Are you ready to buy the ticket?
Dude, let's go.
We should go on a trip.